for the first time. I am truly honored that you are here. My name is Michelle Ebalaroza-Kawano. I'm a speaker, author, and a creative coach, and this is my podcast. It's a space where real life stories, real life conversations, and faith filled transformations happen. We are here with Shiran. Am I saying that right, Shiran?
Yeah,
Shiran.
it's like she run and my last name is Fast, so I'm running fast.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So, here in Walking in Aloha, Aloha has so many meanings here in Hawaii, but here we talk about affirmations and actions, leadership and love, overcoming obstacles, health and healing, and acute awareness. And today's guest is Sharon, award-winning best business transformation expert, international keynote speaker, author of Unstoppable Business Growth, and creator of the CEO Transformation Method. Okay, so before we go on into the Aloha Always framework that I sent over to you earlier, and that is the one thing that connects all of my guests together is the Aloha Always framework. But before we go into that, how about you share a little bit about yourself and tell us more about your story.
I would love to. And what an intro! All of these big titles. Love it. So my name is Shiran, and I am from Brisbane, Australia. I moved to Australia 16 years ago from Israel, and I needed to reinvented myself when you do such a big drastic change for migrating to a new country, especially one that doesn't speak my native language. So I needed to learn English all the way from scratch, and that's by itself bring a big journey, but it's pushed me into entrepreneurship because no one really going to give you that first shot when you come into a new country, and I need to do something with myself. And I really fell in love with anything to do with business from really young age. And that's got me into have multiple businesses. Some of them are sold when I was younger, and then I ended up with a venture with my husband for 10 years, running an amazing gardening store together, with lots of growing our family, growing the business, growing ourselves as people at the same time. And we grew that business to a multi-million dollar company that won lots of awards and looked very successful on paper and was very successful in any other measure for 9 whole years out of the 10. But what got me into consulting um, is an interesting path because I did not choose it initially. I ended up closing my company, and I can share about that later on if we found it relevant. But I found out that sometimes you get the path um, discovered, or like when you see it for the first time by other people. And a few weeks after I closed my company, someone reached out to me and say, "I want you to come and consult my company." And I thought he's laughing at me or trying to mock me because I just closed the company. But he could see a potential in something that I didn't see at that time. And that got me into the consulting path. I did not thought I would stay with there for long. It was just something that I was doing to, and I was even doing it unpaid because I never thought or believed in myself that it's something I can do. I saw myself as a big failure in that few weeks after the closure. And then I realized that there is a reason why I'm doing this. And it put me into a new path in my life that I never thought that was right for me or something that I wanted to do. But it just tick all of my boxes today. And in fact, it's almost feel like everything I've done in my life from a really young age has led me into where I am today. Looking backwards, I'm like, it's everything falling into place. And it's something that you not usually see in your journey until, I guess, when you cross your 40s, right? So today I'm helping businesses to grow their company with the center of my methodology being alignment. And that's what I do today. And that's the foundation for everything I do. Like a journey I never thought I would share with the world is now the foundation for every single conversation I have. And
Wow,
that's what brought
that
me to
is
you.
incredible. Yeah, that is incredible. Thank you for sharing. And let's go now.
Your
Sorry,
TV is
guys,
on.
but yes. And it's like ghost because the remote is sitting over there by itself and it's turning on its own. So my TV has a mind of its own. AI. I'm kidding. I'm not. Yeah, my TV has its own brain today, and we'll just leave that alone. So if you guys watching this dark screen behind me, it's because of that. So forgive me. Let's go on to the Aloha Always framework of questions that I sent you earlier. In this current season, what is the truth that has been consistently affirming in your life right now? That's the first A in affirmations and actions in
Yeah.
Aloha.
It's again something I discovered in the middle of a speech, to be honest. I never knew I was doing something that in the last few years really grounded me and gave me the right direction all the time. I I'm a big believer in affirmation, but a lot of the time when we think about affirmation, it's something that you just need to repeat and eventually it will happen, right?
Mhm.
And I don't look at it that way. I look at it from a matter of a question. So there is a question I ask myself every day that really helped me to choose my path every single day. And before I reveal that question, I will just share that sometimes we are jumping in life on a train and go to a certain direction, right? And there is a time when we need to go off that station and be in the right destination. And I lived for 10 years, basically missing at least, if that's a 10 stations, I missed 8 of those stations to come off and probably fell asleep. And from that moment of closing my company, I started to ask myself a question every night. And only 2 years later, I realized that that's what I'm doing. And it was just something I was doing in my subconscious. I would ask myself, will I do the same thing again tomorrow? So I would reflect on my day and think about every conversation I had with a friend, every conversation I had with a client, or things that I've done in that day, and I will re-choose of doing them again, or choose to pivot from them or do something else. And I found that over the last few years, it's helped me to refine a life that is something I choose. I call it life by design today. It's something that I design every day and I choose every day. And it's all stemmed from that moment where you realize you've been on the wrong train for too long. And the only way to make sure you never miss a station again is asking that question. And today I even implement that inside businesses with the team. So not asking, will I do it is the same question, will I do the same thing again today? Reflecting on customer conversations we had, reflecting on interactions we had with the team, and really figure out those pivot points, moments that we need to make a slight change. So we're constantly
Mhm.
readjusting instead of being a situation of restarting. And for me, a lot like the affirmation now is only that questions and the answers. It's not necessarily saying those money mantras or the success mantras that I used to
Right.
receive in so many conferences. So that's what it is for me in your affirmation and action. It's what drive every single action I take in my life.
That's good. Like people don't realize like you need to ask yourself those questions, right? Because if you're not questioning yourself and just going through, like you said, so what if you're repeating those things over and over and over? It's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're just repeating those things, but ask yourself like, so am I gonna do this again tomorrow? Am
Yeah.
I really gonna, you know,
Yeah. Did I
act the
actually
same way,
enjoy it from
act the
those
same
moments?
way, or do the same thing? Yeah, that's very important. And then the
It
action
is.
behind it, right? Because affirmation and action, like I always say, affirmations are just great words. If you don't have the actions behind it, it means nothing. It really does. So very good. So good. So what intentional action or discipline helps you to stay aligned with what truth has, wait, I'm sorry, with with that truth as a leader and entrepreneur. So you ask yourself the questions and to stay aligned with that truth as a leader or entrepreneur.
So I constantly come back to the core of the reason why I'm an entrepreneur, or the reason why we do everything in life, right? The goal of almost every person is coming down into freedom, right? We want freedom of time, we want freedom of creativity, and we want the freedom of money. And all of those things have different weight in different times of life. And I always connect that question to everything I do every single day, because there is things that you don't like doing, right? And I had so many people in my life said to me, "You just need to find something that motivate you, give you rewards at the end of the quarter." And it doesn't make me enjoying doing those things, right? What actually get you to enjoy taking an action is that you understand exactly why you're doing what you do, right? So if I do something that I absolutely enjoy and love, like speaking to you now is my favorite thing. Later on, scheduling all of the rest of the shorts into my socials is probably not what I love doing, right? But I still
Yeah.
do it because it's serving that bigger goals, the bigger purpose. So when I ask myself that question, when I transfer it into actions, it's always come from the why do I do it? Sometimes the things I don't like, I delegate, and
Mhm.
some of the things I want to do myself because I want to learn how to do them. And it's always playing with those free levers of freedoms for me, is to understand, do I want to delegate to someone else? It will cost me money, but it will not, churn my creativity and my happiness, or do I want to really do it myself from a creative point of view and learn, or if I want to gain myself more time or take more time for myself. So every action I do, I usually know exactly where it's fit in those areas as well. And that's helping me to know that what I do, even if I don't like doing it, I still do it because it's fit a bigger picture. I know where it's heading
Mhm.
to, and there is many things that I think I should do, but then I discard them later on as well. So I think it's a big combination, and at the end of the day, everyone need to find what's suitable for them, because we all have different needs, different energies, different ways that we work. But I come back always to the core: should I do that or not? Not because I can, but can I actually? Should I do that? And
Yeah.
also, do I want to action on it or get someone else to action on it? But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I like
roughly
I
my
like that.
framework.
I like that, how you say like, should I do it or should I just get somebody else to do it? Because we can always just do everything, but
Yes.
is that going to be like our best? Are we giving our best because we did it? Or we're going to be like dragging this out and then be like, oh, I could have just been doing that. I would rather have been doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I always tell my husband, like, if I could just hire someone for all of those things. So now I'm able to hire a VA so that
Mm.
I can have that person do the stuff that I would do. It needs to be done. Granted, it needs to be done, but to me, that's just taking up time kind of work. I'm
Yeah.
like, just have somebody else do it, you know. So now I do. I can actually have a VA just do that part. And that's so
It's really
helpful.
important. It's really
Yeah.
important. I work with a lot of business owners and teams to really identify what is the things that light us up and what is the things that actually drain our energy down. Because when we do something that drain our energy down for too long, we end up with
Yeah.
burnout, because burnout is just an outcome of misalignment, right? It's an outcome of
Mm.
not doing the things that you love doing. I never seen someone that got burned out from watching Netflix for the whole night, right? Like, you don't actually get burnout from doing things that bring you joy or make you happy,
Yeah.
and you do get burnout from the other. So when it's come to actions, the only time when you can actually take an action is when you want to do those things, when it's aligned with you. um, and I'm hearing myself speaking, and it's things that you would not hear myself saying things like that a few years ago when I was a CEO of my company. it will be all
Yeah.
about the people as well, but the numbers and the projects and alignment. Or now I know that this is what driving everything, but back in the day I couldn't see that. I was very focused on running the race. And it's nice to be in that perspective where you control every aspect of your life, most
Yeah.
of it.
So good. So good. So the L in Aloha is leadership and love. You've led teams, scaled businesses, and worked closely with leaders. How has love shaped your definition of leadership?
When I saw the L in your methodology, it's made me laugh a bit, because you have leadership and love, which sometimes they conflict in many people's heads, but they not. And there is few ways that I like to look at both of those words, because I believe that leadership is very similar to a relationship of love as well, like when you have with your partner, and there is very similar themes in both of those roadmaps until you get married, until you have kids, right? And you can relate the roadmap of love and dating and marriage very closely with leadership and business. So I think when your methodology is the first time I've seen them coming together, not in my head, but in someone else's head. So I really enjoyed seeing it. And um, I think I think leadership is an act of love. Like if you don't come with love for leadership, you will be a bad leader. And
Yes.
I'm not saying that you need to be selfless. You need to love yourself and you need to love your team. And the reason why I say that is because in my business and in my book, I talk a lot about control, which is exactly the opposite of love, right? You
Mhm.
control people, humans, but you control. I will say differently. You use love and you use in a systematic way, right? Because we don't love them as partner, but in a systematic way, you use love for other people, for other human, in order to get the result, in order to control results. So the way I like to frame it now is that in order to have a successful business, to grow a company, in order to be a good leader, you need to really have the care and the love for other humans and understand what they want to achieve in their life, to understand what your customers are dreaming about, to understand what you as a person want to achieve and grow. So if you don't love yourself and if you don't love your team, then whoever you don't love in that team probably need to be replaced. It's almost like a cue that will tell you
Mhm.
there is an issue in there and that need to be fixed. So it can be like in a relationship when we can work on it together, or it can be align again our goals, or it can be that we should part, we should get divorced, or we should. So leadership and love is for me almost the same as relationships, and sometimes you need to cut ties and sometimes you need to keep love and embracing. um but yeah, it's together they both actually control the results that we see in our papers later on. And it's amazing to see that connection today. Like I have the ability to see how love really shifting leadership and how it's shifting results, which is at the end of the day one of the most important parts in a business that help to drive
Yeah.
it forward. So yeah, I really
So good.
I was really happy to see them, these two words together.
So good. You
Yeah.
know, the way that I came up with, well, I didn't come up with it. I asked God to help me write my book, which is the
Mhm.
5 steps to living your God potential life, walking in aloha. And the L, leadership and love, it was because I had to love myself enough to lead myself out of the relationship I was in, and I was in the domestic violence relationship. But as I lived throughout all of that, and then the healing part, I still walked in aloha. And in order for me to do all of the things that I do now, up until now, I've led groups, I've led church groups, I've led senior groups, and it's the same way. Yeah. You lead with love. And I'm like, it's so good how, like you said, at one point, people look at it like it's two opposite things. But when you do bring it together, it's so good to be able to say it's so much better to lead with love. Because in the Bible, if you think about it, how did Jesus lead? He led with love. He wouldn't have been able to be like, let me wash your feet. Let me, he started, he tied the towel around him. He got down and he's like, gonna wash their feet. And they're like, no,
Mm.
no, master, you can't wash my feet. And he showed them, he was like, if I can't do this for you to show you this, how can you do this for someone else? And
Correct.
that is the leadership and love. And when God showed me that, I was like, if I just could look at that from way before and know that Christ already showed me that, I would have walked away from that relationship whole before, right? Instead of falling apart and having to learn all of that over. I'm like, ah, but yeah, so good. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing all of that.
It's
But what leadership belief did you have to unlearn? Because there's a lot of stuff that we pick up along the way that
yeah.
we don't want to carry on. Right? What did you have to unlearn in order to lead with authenticity rather than control or performance?
And I think that's exactly what you just said. I used to control based
Mhm.
leadership in my earlier years. And I think it's coming a lot of the time from the pressure to prove yourself, or because I was a migrant and I always needed to prove myself, and I was a female in the industry of men's, and you always need to prove yourself. So you try to take that masculinity sort of energy and try to do everything with controlling. The moment it shifted to me, I think it was around 2019, and it's interesting because I remember enrolling into like an entrepreneurship business group. It was with business owners that really thinking in a way that is more holistic, and I really enjoy being in this group. But I went through a process in there to understand the importance of vision, mission, and values, and that moment brought me back into my childhood when I was a scout leader, and I still in the scouts today because of that epiphany that it taught me so much as a kid, and it's actually given me so much today as well as an adult volunteer. Is that I always used to craft my activities for the young kids based on what is the goals and what is the values that we have and what is the overall vision for me for the year with that group. So I used to do it as a 14, 15-year old, but I never done it in my early stages of business. It was all about the numbers and the control and the growth. And in that moment in 2019, I don't remember exactly the time, but I remember it collide. It's like that experience clicked in with that extra knowledge I got from that group and looking at my business. And that's the times when everything started to propel like crazy. Like we started to double and triple our revenue every single year because it's almost like put everything into in a wrapper, right? Like into a very cohesive group because you have the values, which are the conduct of behavior. And today I speak a lot about values. Um, and for myself as well, it's something that I started to set. I constantly reevaluate my values every year. And I have a journal coming up next month, which called Life by Design, where you actually go through the process of setting your own values. And it's something that you need to do every year. They not change often, but sometimes they do when your life change, and you need to be aware of it. So these things really, I guess, moved me from having a control leadership to a very they call it soft leadership, but it's not. It's actually more result driven once you look at it from the right perspective and you systemize it in a way that love and providing that control and not necessarily coming from the control stage. I meet a lot
Mm.
of business owners that when they have issues with profitability, the first thing they look at in their P&L is how do I cut teams? How do I restructure my organization? And to be honest, it's the last thing we need to do. The first thing we need to do is to value who is the people that are in our ecosystem now that are here for the right reasons, that we
Mhm.
love them and they love us. We have mutual benefits of growing that. And to top it up, I went for a bit of a crisis. We had in my company, we had a value of family atmosphere. And then very quickly, I realized that that value actually jeopardized the purpose of love. Because as much as we want to create organizations that behave like family sometimes, or feels like family, that we all want to be here, there is other
Mhm.
aspects of family that we should not have in organization. So even when we choosing our values to behave, we need to choose them carefully in order to enable love, in order to enable the ability to have the open communication while you still have hierarchy and respect. And it's really been a transformation over the years, but I would say that early on it was very controlled based, and now it's coming from the I would say the win-win, which is still defining love in a way, not unconditional love, but coming with love in order to control results. So it's exactly the opposite than what I used to be. I would say maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, you know, I was on with another guest, and the one thing that he was saying in his circle of doing things, he realized that in order, you know, when he made the change was that when he started asking and caring more about the people, and he started asking like what, you know, like how you said, what do they want? What do they need? And really thinking about their needs, not just at work, but their home life and their kids, and what are their true needs, like their health, and you know, like why, because if their health isn't good or if something's happening at home, then their work life isn't good, right? So when he started caring more about other things, and then they realized like, oh, he really cares, then their work life was better, right? And then they they work better, and then everybody's, the whole um morale was better, and then everything's good. So it's like, and that's just love, right? You're
Yes.
leading with love. And
I have to
everything gets
also
better.
share that love is contagious,
Yeah.
and it's a love and kindness. And
Hmm.
I just came
Yes.
back from a cruise for the first time in my life. I never thought it's the holiday for me. And one of my friends said to me, "You have to come. Let's do it
Oh,
once." And I
cruises are
enjoyed
the
it so
best, I
much.
have to say.
But for me, I remember in one of the dinners, the whole crew came out to the dining room, and everyone cheered for them, and they were dancing, and they were dancing for the song "Because You're Happy." And I was looking at that, and I'm looking at my experience in the past 3 days I've been on the board. It was 7 days holiday, and the first 3 days, it's almost felt like I'm looking at my book and my methodology in live. It's like every
Mhm.
single thing that I stand for and every single thing that I mention is the outcome of what I teach was there in front of me, like glorious with
Mhm.
happiness. So I started to interview employees like me. I need to understand, is it a fake happiness? Is because it's part of the procedure? Or is it actually truly happiness? And the more I started to speak to team members there,
Mhm.
it was amazing because all of them have contracts of 9 months on the ship. Some of them
Mhm.
have families abroad that they don't see their kids, but they all know why they are there. Every single one of them knew that the reason why they are on the board is one of them had a kid that it was 4 years old, and she said, I have another 3 years of both, and then I'm going to have enough money and savings to spend the rest of the teenager's life with them in the Philippines. And they all knew, they all had their reasons. It was very strong. And I tried everyone, like from the kitchen, from the shops, they all knew why they're there. Some of them just love traveling and they don't have family, but they all had a reason why they staying 9 months on a boat. And it's really connected to everything I teach in the employee pillars of my business, because they made me feel special. They made sure I want to come back. They made sure I'm happy and everything is taken care of. And for me as a customer, I transformed from someone that never wanted to be on a cruise and kind of pushed into that holiday to someone that see their future family holidays on a cruise ship. And
Mhm.
that is exactly the definition or the manifestation of everything I teach. How the employees and their happiness is really related to the outcome of the customers eventually and why we are there. And when you go and ask every single one of them why you're so happy, they all will answer you, if you're happy, I'm happy. And when you dig deeper, you know that they understand the connection between happy, which is a very high value on Royal Caribbean cruise ship, to how it's manifesting their own dreams of being with their families back home when they had enough savings. Or and it just made me so happy to see it. And
Yeah.
when I talk about contagious is because they are happy. The whole like, I never sat in a restaurant when in the middle of my meal I get up with a napkin and I cheer to my waitress, because it became a cultural contagious of happiness and love. And
Yeah.
yeah, to wrap up leadership and love, this is like the biggest example I've seen of how it's working hand in hand and benefit you then financially in business as well. So yeah, that was just last week, and as I see you speaking or hear you, I'm like, I have to share that story because it's exactly that.
That
And
is
I know
so
you love
good that
traveling.
you shared. Yes. Cruise ships are my thing. And we go on a cruise almost every year. And the one thing, you're right, when you're on a cruise ship, um, they will remember you and you can go on the next one. And we've traveled like from Japan to the Mediterranean. And if they, we travel the same cruise line, Princess
Yeah.
Cruises. So sometimes they're on another cruise line. I mean,
Hmm.
the cruise boat, but they're,
Yeah.
and if they're on it, they'll remember you. They'll come and if they see you, they'll come to you and they'll be like, we're like, oh my gosh, weren't you on?
Yeah.
Weren't you in
They
Japan?
remember.
And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but
Yeah.
they'll
I've said it to
remember
my
you and
friend.
they'll make
Yeah.
you feel like, you're special. So that's the whole thing, to remember you, to know you, not just as another person on the ship,
Yeah.
but as an individual, right?
Yeah.
And if you can do that for your employees, not just you're another person that works for me, but you're a person, an
Yes.
individual person.
Yeah.
So that is, yeah, so important. So good.
It is. It is.
So overcoming obstacles. The O in Aloha, every growth journey faces resistance. What obstacle challenged you the most as you scaled your business and stepped into larger leadership?
Um, I will actually choose two because obstacles is one of my I never thought it would be one of my favorite topics, but it is today because I realize that every time when we face an obstacle, can be small or big,
Mhm,
it's actually time to create a change in order to grow. So today, from a personal level, if I notice that we can talk about my speaking skills, that I wanted to refine them, right? I realized that yes, I have confidence. Yes, I know my messages, but I still not where I dream of being. Therefore, if I feel a bit of scarcity of coming on a podcast, if I feel like I'm hesitate to sell an email to an event organizer, it's mean that I'm not fully complete in that area and I need to increase my skills and my knowledge. So then you go and take a speaking coach, right? So every single stage of my life, in my businesses or also in personal level, every time when there is something that become more urgent for me because I notice it's holding me back, then I will know that it's time for growing. And this is how in business I also recognize that when you start to hit a certain wall. I remember the first time we needed to cross to $1 million a year. Like that was something I could not cross. Like every year I was like, why we can't cross that 1 million a year? Like why are we sticking on the six figures? And then I had a mentor that said to me, that your business placing a glass ceiling on yourself and you also placing a glass ceiling on the business, and both of them need to break in order to overcome to the next growth phase, both from an organizational point of view, but also from a mindset point of view. And I will add, as someone that do transformation in companies today, you also need to do that transformation with your team. So every time when there is any business change, there is few different things you need to look at that are both combination of mindset, strategy, organizational point of view. And if anyone that listen to us actually grow or want to grow a company, there is a free resource on my website that basically showing you all the things that you need to overcome during all the growth stages of your company. And part of that document also show you, it's just one page per business stage. There is 9 stages, and there is also the mindset of the owner. So what is the things that we need to shift in our own identity in order to succeed for another growth phase? Because if we don't do that, we actually do get stuck in that ceiling. And I thought it was just a saying, but I felt it. I felt that I'm getting stuck in one location and it doesn't move unless you overcome certain things. So for me, overcoming obstacles is, first of all, recognizing, if it's going back to the first question I ask myself every night, is recognizing what is the things that are holding you back in order to grow again. So the way I like to look at it, and it's align, pivot, and grow. So you basically need to realign yourself in order to create a pivot, or being aware of yourself in order to create some sort of a pivot. It can be small and it can be big. It doesn't really matter. But then you see the growth. So in order to really overcome any obstacle in the way, the first thing we need to do is figure out, am I going in the right direction? You know, like sometimes no matter what you try, it's always like reverse you back. You know, like you just can't cross that. It's like, you know, Facebook started
One step
penalizing you.
forward,
Like,
2 steps back.
yes. So when you feel that, that's when I stop myself and I think, okay, why is that happening? Where is actually the things that I need to align in order to take the next step? So I used to look at business as strategy first, put your goals, make the action plan on your task, click up whatever project management software you use. Today, there is another step before it, which means I need to align first. I need to check. I need to audit. Like I need to see where there is a misalignment behind that growth and then grow. So my biggest obstacle in my business career by far will be the time I decided to close my company. And I never seen that as a choice in the beginning. Like it was a choice, but I always felt like I also pressured into that choice in a way. And it was an obstacle that, like, I always come from the stand that you can choose what you want, which obstacle you want to pass and go above, and which one you decide not to. And by far the hardest decision I had was to make a decision to close what used to be a very successful company. So it's only the last year of it when we had a lot of misalignment there, and make a lot of decisions that were today I know sabotaging the company subconsciously, right? Obviously, we didn't want to sabotage the company, but when you start to see things in a different lens, sometimes that's the outcome, and that's one of the reasons why many companies are actually closing. But going through that obstacle made me of closing the company made me realize that I thought it was the end of the line, right? It was like, that's it, my business career is finished. I'm a failed CEO, I'm a failed business owner. And it took me a while to see that any obstacle, except for, you can choose to grow. Like I said, you can choose your obstacle if you jump it. You can choose to grow, you can choose to put a cut. Back in the day, for the one with the cut, I saw it as a failure. And it's only after I studied NLP extensively, I realized that every single failure is a failure unless you transform it into learning. And in the moment you do that, then you overcome the obstacle, even if it was a big failure obstacle. Like you can still look at the past and say it was a big challenge and I did not pass that challenge. But I converted that into something that today I leverage to help so many other people, including myself. So for me, obstacles are either a signal to grow, that you need to realign, pivot, and then grow, or it's something you need to put a stop for and take another direction that is more aligned with you. And then, because you didn't jump the obstacle, you took a turn instead and created
Yeah.
a new path with new obstacles in the way. obstacles never end. They're always part of our life. We just need to figure out how we um, work with them, how we recognize them early enough so you can grow versus, you know, stop and jump on new obstacles. But yeah, that's biggest training.
Yeah, that's good. You know, like you said, obstacles never end. So if
No.
we look at obstacles, not like walls or mountains, but we look at obstacles like stepping stones, then we just need to walk on them, not have to go over them. Then it's a whole lot, it's a better, I say for me, because I'm a very visual person, it's a lot better to see them as stepping stones because I can look at it and I can look at the pathway to get through things. If I look at them like hurdles or mountains, then I look at them like obstacles, like, oh my gosh, I got to do this and I got to do that. But if I look at them as stepping stones instead, I'm like, oh, I see I have to go that way. And it may take a bigger step to go that way, but still,
Yeah.
you get through them, right? Because it's always like you said, it's always going to be there. Something's always going to happen. Something's always going to come up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, how did walking through that season refine your voice? Like you were talking about your speaking voice and having to do all of that, and um, how we always have to upgrade sometime, like we always do. But how did that refine your voice and strengthen your conviction?
I think voice is in general an interesting thing to say, right? We all
Mm.
have voice, and
Yes.
I never really learned how to use it properly. And on top of that, I think moving to Australia and not speaking my native language, like start to learn a new language, you shut your voice automatically from both a cultural point of view, like you're not fitting in with the way that you behave. So you need to learn a whole new code of behavior, but also you need to learn um, how to finding your voice again, because you also need to find
Mhm.
your identity on the go. So I would say that for many, many years, I suppressed my voice and I've always been the person behind the scenes. I designed my previous, my gardening business to be almost invisible. No one knew that I was running this operation. It was always in the back, and there was my team shining to the front or my husband. And I found it easier now when I speak about things that matter to me so much. Where, the other day I got a review from one of my ex employees that read my book, and she sent me a text and she said, I read it and it's you. It's like every single word, every single method, everything. It just you. I know it's you because I've worked for you. And it's really surprised me because I didn't wrote the book for being me. I wrote the book to help others. But then someone that know me really well could see it's a reflection of my voice. And that's when you know that you really are aligned with everything you do, because even the outcome of the product that you produce is you. And living for 10 years with a business that support the gardening industry and people that love gardening, I could share my knowledge that I've learned for over the years. I can definitely hold a conversation with horticulturalists now for 2 hours. But at the same time, it was never the conversations I would thrive in. So I would never let my voice shine, right? When people used to ask me what I do, I would say I had a retail company. I would not say that I have a gardening company even. And today I know when I speak with a lot of business owners, if they don't actually tell me what they do and they don't have spark in their eyes, I already know we have a big misalignment problem we need to solve on that owner pillar point of view, because I've been there. And you know what it is to not fully be aligned with your voice. You speak and you teach people on gardening, but I would never put my fingers in the dirt at home, right? So that misalignment was something I never really thought much about, but eventually, now in looking at it backwards, it was the biggest reasons why I let the whole thing go. So today, helping businesses grow from a very aligned place, creating a whole methodology that I hope will change the way we transform companies, because the reality is that 70% of transformations fail. So if my methodology can help people to actually transform a company without the failure that come with it, it can be small failures, big failures, it doesn't really matter. They all cost money. So I do believe that I've that's covered my legacy in this world. So every time when I get an opportunity to speak, I enjoy that. I thrive on sharing my expertise, or being on podcast or writing my book. So my voice now is finally united on both personal level and business level, which is something I never experienced before. And it's make me happy.
That is so good. I mean, it feels so good when you can find a place where you're like, I like this. I feel that alignment in what makes me happy. Like you said, I'm so happy, because it's like when you're aligned. I mean, I do still work at TSA, and I say that my job is what funds my mission because I need the money, right? So my job funds my mission. But I just helped 11 um, authors co-write 2 books, and I just published just this week. No, it's Monday. So last week.
Yeah.
I'm like, where are we now, right? So yeah, it was just last week. And just to think, I can do that now. I can do that for other people where I struggled through that. And I'm like, oh, if someone could just help me. And I had to figure things out. And I just did a little short recording. It wasn't short, it was an hour. What am I talking about? Anyway, I get ahead of myself. I just, to be able to do that and to be able to say, you're just that much ahead of someone else that you can help someone else, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be like way, way ahead or way, way advanced. And the analogy that I gave was that, okay, you're walking along and you trip, right? You look back and you're like, oh, shoot, there was like this thing in the ground and I tripped over it. And then you see other people coming and you're like, oh, whoa, careful now. There's this hole right here. All you was is just that few steps in front of this other person. And now they don't have to trip,
Mhm.
right? They don't have to trip. They don't have to fall over. They go around, they step over it. They're okay, right? And that's all you have to do is just be just that one small little step in front of someone else in order for you to help them along. So you don't have to, and like you said, our voice, it's it changes, it helps, but to refine and to do that for just someone else, just to help them out, to get them by. And you've learned so much throughout your journey that if you can just do that for the next person, right?
And I
Yeah.
found it interesting that a lot of the time we don't want to use our voice or our story because it's painful, right? Like
Yeah.
you went through things in your life with DV, and I went with a collapse of a company, and
Yeah.
many other challenges in life. But at the end of the day, when I was sitting down with myself and thinking, I have the ability to never share my story, right? But if you Google any story of any business owner that had a business collapse, you don't find many of them because people don't want to share those stories, and because it's hard, you relive an experience that takes a while to transfer it from a failure or from an open wound to a scar. I remember the first time I started to share my story when I just started to write my book. I was crying to my publisher all the time. Even calling my book Unstoppable Business Growth took me a while. It wasn't a name I chose, it was a name that my publisher chose. And it grew on me eventually, but only when I understood that the reason why I can call it Unstoppable Business Growth is because I actually experience what it takes to stop a company. So until I really had that clear in my head and I managed to convert those wounds into massive learnings and scars that I can help others
Mhm.
with it, I was not ready to share my story. I remember when I got even the books into my house, I was still holding it because I was struggling to tell people no that my book is printed, even if it's only going to be properly published in a few weeks from now. It was hard for me because it's sharing a very vulnerable story. So you need
Yeah.
a lot of courage, but also
Mhm.
understanding what is the benefits for everyone else because of that story and the learning that you converted it to. Because it's not easy, and there is a reason why we don't hear a lot of those stories until uh, people are like Donald Trump, right? Like he went with 50 million liquidations, but now he's sharing it because who cares, right? He have billions in his bank account. So I feel like a lot of the time when we hear those stories is after another major massive success, and when you need to share those stories when you still didn't had, like I'm nowhere near where I used to be from a wealth perspective, from a leadership perspective, from a quantity point of view. I'm not nowhere near where I used to be. Like a few years ago I was managing a team of 30 people, and now it's only one, me and a VA. So it's a completely different story, and it definitely play in your head of like, do I actually have the right to share my story? Do I actually have the right um, to convert it into lessons already? But when you start to see how many people it's impact, how many people say, whoa, that actually made me see business in a completely different way, you realize that you're you already converted it to lessons, right? And it's worth
Yeah.
every single moment that I may need to deal with my self, reflection of should I share this story or not. And it's not easy, like all of my story is about misalignment between me and my husband in my business. And at the same time, I can tell it as all of this story is me choosing love, is me choosing that beyond and above everything else that is matter in this world. So there is
Mhm.
always a way to let your voice heard. I think as long as it's inspire other people on the other side, it's worth sharing it. And as you said, it's one
Yeah.
step ahead to really
Yeah.
impact other people. So that's what gave me the courage to actually share my true voice today. Um,
So
it's the
good.
impact it
Yeah.
creates.
So good. So good. So the H in Aloha, health and healing, high level leadership often comes with pressure. What has healing look like for you, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, or spiritually? That's right.
Yeah. I love pressure. Okay, like I have ADHD and I thrive in pressure. In the moment there is no pressure, then I'm I'm out. So for me, part of the healing process is actually creating the pressure to create a new business. I started another sport organization I brought into Australia a few years back. Like I like having um, I guess part of my healing process is being busy, but not from the sake of being busy or from doing meaningful things. So I will keep this one really short because for me, what create my healing and what create my health alignment is really constantly growing myself. It's go back all the way to values. One of my biggest values is constantly learning and evolving and investing in my self growth. I spent a lot of money and time on growing myself as a person. From I never got a university degree, but I definitely spent more than like few doctorates in order to grow myself. Every business owner can relate to that. We spend so much resources into learning, constant learning, um, and really identify my identity. So every single thing that relates to healing is always taking me back into who I am, why I do what I do, and that's helped me to the recovery from that perspective. I use that technique when I became a mom for the first time, and you have all of that identity shift. You always need to come back to the core and really know who you are. And it's not an easy job, but I feel like healing always starts when you actually face that, go back to your roots, to who you are. It's what brought me back into believing in God and religion. Like I was the furthest away from a believer. It's part of a healing process, and I think it's always come back into connecting back to internally in order
Yeah.
to move forward.
So good. That is a huge part in the healing
Yeah.
is, I believe, is to go back to the core. And a lot of times that core is getting back to God. That
It
is
is.
it. But
And
acute
again, it's probably
awareness, the
something I would
last.
laugh. It's probably something I would have
Yeah.
laughed on if I had myself in that podcast today a few years back.
But the last A in Aloha is acute awareness. When did you become deeply aware that your story, including the challenges, was meant to guide and empower others?
There was multiple cues, and I think the first one I already mentioned earlier, that someone asked for my consulting um, without me being a consultant. That was the first sort of realizing I have a tool in my belt that I never had before. And there was a few other comments from clients. One was, if I knew you before, I probably would not be divorced today. When you hear someone saying
Mhm.
something like that because he
Yeah.
chose business instead of love, and I had that sentence actually multiple times. It wasn't just one client. You know, you're in the right path. um, but for me, a lot of that awareness came from the reflection and journaling on 15 years of business. One of the biggest questions I had for myself is, why on the last day that I let go of all of my team, I gave them the last paycheck, I sent them the last emails, I got them all into the lunchroom, completely crying because I'm an emotional person, and letting them go instead of they crying. They all stayed without pay. I just launched the last paycheck. They all stayed to help me wrap up. And that questions of why they stayed was something that was in my head for a very long time. And going back into my Royal Caribbean story, this is people that will stay for a bit longer in case the ship is getting late or in case there is a need for a bit more extra help, right? Is because there is that full alignment. And you know, you talk about how aloha you got from God. I can't say yet that I got it from God, but there is two words, two things that kind of been almost on a level of downloaded into my life. One was alignment. It came to me in dreams, that the word, I could see it on um, like a vision of in one of my dreams. I love dreaming. Have alignment written on the front of a shop. Like it was that clear that there is something in this word that I need to pursue. And the other one is all of this behind me, that Venn diagram I created from all of the studies I've done in the last 2 years. That came to me as a complete package. And I don't know where or how or what, but there was something that pushed me into that. I could visualize that. And I'm not a person that visualizes things usually. I visualize in my dreams. I could see those two things very clearly. And the exploration of alignment is what got me into the awareness part, realizing that it's actually the core of every single problem we have in life, in relationship, in our wealth, in our businesses, in everything. If we don't have those solid foundation, and if we don't ask ourselves the question every single day, do I still want to do what I do on every single aspect, right? You know, how many times you sit up with the same friend, and after you left, you're like, oh, can't believe I still caught up with that person again, right? It's because it's not necessarily that it will not be a good friend that you had for a while. It's just that maybe it's time to part, or just to see each other on different occasions. It's mainly happen when you start to form your family with extra, you know, you have the kids, and suddenly the relationship you had before don't last anymore. They change shape, and you always need to evaluate that. Are we still aligned with having that friendship, having that relationship? Because it's a lot easier to realign than to do a complete cut. I have some friends today that I love dearly, but they had the space in my life, and now they have a different role. They're still there because I didn't need to cut ties. They just have a different configuration of our friendship because I pivoted away from the way it used to be. So for me, awareness is all about constantly being aware if I'm living by alignment, if I'm living by design, or if I just running or continuing with the wrong train for way too long.
That's so good. You know, like you say, alignment, you saw it in your dream and everything. Alignment is actually my word for the year. And every year I ask God for a word. And that
Yeah.
was my word, alignment.
Maybe that's why we're doing
So
this podcast today. We both have the
exactly.
same mission.
Perfect. What would
Yeah.
you say to a leader or entrepreneur who knows they're called to more but feels misaligned or stuck?
Um, I would say, going back again to that question, is that when you feel like you're misaligned, it's actually an opportunity, right? If you catch it quick enough, you can leverage it to growth. If you don't do anything with it, it's actually become a resentment. It's become toxic. So for me, any person that feel like they are born for more, but they are stuck in the same place, I would say go and check what is the things that holding you back, because fear and is something that help us to discover what is our limiting belief. Fear is what help us to discover where we are stuck, and then what we need to do is just find one thing we can do that will take us to that next level, to unlock that potential we have within us. And it's amazing how, like, my husband always said to me that I dig deep into myself way too much sometimes. But every time when something upset me, I know that there is something way bigger behind it. It can be with someone else in a relationship. It can be when I drive and I get really upset that there is traffic. I don't get upset on the traffic or on the bad driver. I'm upset on myself for not leaving the house in time, right? So when you learn how to recognize those things, every time when I get upset, I know that it's time for me to check inwards because there is something bigger I need to unpack. So the only way to really transform yourself, to unleash that growth and the potential, is constantly looking for the things that bother you, that upset you, and find ways to change them, because that's the only way you can unlock that and really do what you're born to do.
So good. So, this last question. When people encounter your work and hear your story, what do you hope they walk away with believing about God, leadership, and their own potential?
That we all have a potential to do whatever we want. We just need to
Good.
decide if we want to unleash it or if we want to stay where we are. It's
Yeah.
very easy to stay where we are. So I hope that all the story I share today inspire people to take the next step, and in the right time, because not every time, we live in a world that we need to copy all the time, right? We tend to copy other people's success, other people's roadmaps, blueprints, but it's not what going to fit us. So I guess the biggest takeaway is choose how you become unstoppable. Like, choose how you design your path, because it should be different. It should be your own, and it should be timely with everything else that's important for you in life. So yeah,
Yeah.
unleash your potential.
Ah, yes. Unleash your potential.
Yeah.
Look at me.
You need
Unleash
water.
your potential and don't choke.
Maybe it's God singling you that we need to use the word alignment instead of unleashing.
Alignment. Align your potential. How about that?
Uh,
Thank you so much for sharing and everything that you said, everything you shared. I was just so openly generous. Your journey, your wisdom, and your heart aligned in leadership. Everything was so powerful. It was a powerful reminder that growth is not just strategic,
yeah.
but deeply human. So before
Yeah.
we close, can you please let our listeners know how they can stay connected with you and learn more about your work?
So first of all, following my socials. And the other thing is all of my lessons. I'm a very practical person. So for me, when I wrote the book, it was written for business owners that don't have the time and they just want something that constantly will give them answers. So if you want to learn everything about alignment in business and how to systematically introduce alignment to unlock growth, then buy my book. It is available now in Amazon across the world, and also in local stores, so you can order me in anywhere in the world. Um, and you can order it from my website with a signature for the next few lots I have. Um, And yeah, that's the main way. So if you believe or you're interested in everything I said today, then you definitely have to read my book if you're a leader or if you're a business owner. And then otherwise, I share lots more things on my socials.
Very nice, very nice. And your website was what again?
My name, shiranfast.com. I kept it simple.
Oh, very good. Very easy. Well, Sharon, it's been an absolute blessing to have you on the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. Your leadership, your clarity, and the commitment to alignment truly reflect the life you lead and the life that's led in with purpose. And to everyone that's listening, remember your voice matters. Your leadership matters, and alignment changes everything. So remember the word alignment. And then, like I said, always, always, your voice is your superpower. So never forget your voice. May God's blessings be with you always. Walk in aloha. And until next time, this is Michelle Ebalaroza-Kawano, the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. Thank you, Sharon, for being with us. And ahui ho, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.